Oh, so welcome to Semper Sometimes with Benny. So today I got Meech with us. Another person I just hit up on Instagram and I saw what he was doing, and one of my friends posted him and was like, yo, you should probably hit this dude up. And I was like, fuck, why not? So here we are. I'm gonna say this right off the bat before Meech even introduces himself. We just spoke for like maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and I feel like we have the same exact energy. I feel like this is about to be a really good episode. So without further ado, Meech, welcome, man. Tell us a little bit about you and just kind of give us the background on who's Meech.
What's going on, everybody? It's that shitbag Marine that transitioned to becoming a top tier performer. Everybody always look at me and be like this, like, you were a shitbag? And I was like this, like, no, bro, like I was the shitbag. You see what I'm saying? Like now, and I always got to put myself in that category of what shitbag I was. You know what I mean? Like, because there are different levels to shitbag. Now, I wasn't a shitbag Marine that was like doing drugs or anything like that, but I was definitely the Marine that had that bad attitude. You feel me? That you just didn't want. He wasn't working well with his peers, and he definitely was going to get administratively separated eventually. But for those who don't know, my name is Demetrius Thigpen, also known as Meech Speaks, Staff Sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, podcaster by trade. I hate the but let's just go ahead. Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, raised by a single mother. I know woe is me, typical, story with the whole, father walked out, came in and out, alcoholic. Mother did the best that she could. Unlike my peers who were just getting ready to go off to college, I realized at a certain age that like college just wasn't going to be for me. And I ended up in the military. Joining the United States Marine Corps probably was one of the biggest decisions that I've ever made in my life. And it was probably the best decision that I made in my life. And I tell people that it was the best decision that I ever made in my life because I'm born and raised in Detroit. You know what I mean? Like I was born and raised in Detroit. And growing up, I had a plethora of options. It just, most of them options wasn't going to get me into the space that I needed to be. You see what I'm saying? I could have easily sell drugs. I could have easily ended up in jail. I could have easily just ended up working at a fucking factory or going off to college just like everybody else. But the military gave me an opportunity to finally leave. You know what I mean? And actually like see myself for who I really was.
Yeah. So what I want to understand too is so you were growing up in Detroit. How is that alone? Like just besides the fact of like listening to Eminem, like I don't know nothing about growing up in Detroit. So what was it like growing up in Detroit?
I will say that, when you grow up in Detroit and then you watch the movie 8 Mile, right?
Yeah.
It is these two movies, that movie and the life are two different things. You see what I'm saying? Like, ain't nobody in Detroit battle rapping. I'm just gonna be 100% honest with you. Ain't nobody in fucking Detroit battle rapping and working on it like that. No, that's not the case. But growing up, I mean, like for me, it was more so, like you get used to it. Like you're born in there, you're raised in there. So when people always ask like what it's like growing up, I feel like it's more so like I'm used to that, like the violence, the drugs, I'm used to this environment. So now coming back and visiting, man, I don't know how I survived that.
Yeah. I got you, because I guess if I were to ask myself that question, it'd be like, I don't know, it's where I grew up. I mean, yeah. So I guess that makes sense. I never thought about it like that. So how did you get into the Marine Corps? Like, was it the recruiter? Was it you? Like, how did you fumble your way into becoming a Marine?
The crazy part about that is that, all right, so I used to work at this grocery store. I used to work at this grocery store called Myers, and I had been working there since I was like 15. And I think at this time now, I think I was about like 18. So it's been like 3 years since I've been working there, and I'm pushing carts, bro. Like, and my heart go out to the cart pusher every single time. Like, bro, to this day, bro, I bring my cart to that damn basket every single. You would never see me leave my cart anywhere in that damn parking lot. I walk that cart back up because I used to push carts. And I remember pushing carts one day, and I had gotten into it with management, and it started to really click, because when I tell people that, I'm a father that grew up without a father, navigating through the trenches of fatherhood, doing the best that he can, I really mean that. Because my father wasn't really in the picture.
Got you.
Because my father wasn't in the picture, me and my mom actually worked at the exact same grocery store. She was the cashier and I was the cart pusher.
Okay.
So between me and her, we were bringing in, I think about like, like we were making both $750 an hour. You see what I'm saying? She was making 40, she was working 40 hours. I was working like 20 hours at the time. So between me and her, we were only bringing in probably like, I'll say like $400, $500 a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember pushing carts like, damn, bro, like I fucking hate this. I hate this.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I wasn't going to go to college. My highest aspirations was that I was going to end up as a janitor somewhere because I really couldn't see past like what my talents were. I wasn't good at sports. I didn't get academic. I actually dropped out of college. Mm-hmm. And I see this guy walking. And he's in his uniform. You know what I'm talking about? Like he had the tan shirt.
Yeah.
He had the blue pants with the red.
Uh-huh.
I thought that uniform was the ugliest thing I had ever saw in my life. I thought that was the ugliest uniform. I remember seeing it and saying to myself, like, this got to be the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. But I knew that he was a military recruiter. I knew that he was in the military. Mm-hmm. And I immediately went up to him. And I said, hey, man, are you in the military? And he's like, no. I said, are you a recruiter? And he said, yeah. Now he looking at me because I pulled up on him.
He's like, yo, you doing my job for me.
Like, you feel me? Like he looked at me. He's like, yeah. And I'm like this, well, I need you to recruit me. Now, mind you, I didn't even know the Marine Corps existed. I'm thinking that it's just Army, Air Force, and Navy.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm thinking like, if I just talk to him, I can get into the Air Force. I had dreams of joining the Air Force. So I sat in there. He had me take the practice ASVAB. We sat in there. He gave me the whole spiel. He put out the cards in front of me. I picked the ones that were best suited for me. He sold me. I remember sitting there like this. So how's the Air Force, man? Do you enjoy it? When I tell you that was the first time I had ever got my ass chewed, it was the first, like I'm talking about, he completely forgot that he was on recruiting duty. He forgot that he was on recruiting duty and got to chew on my ass. Like he get to chew on my ass. And he's like, you went in this office for 30 minutes talking to me and you gonna ask me how the Air Force doing? Is this some type of joke? And I'm like, nah, bro, like I didn't know. He's like, this is the Marine Corps. Do you want to join or not? And I'm like this. Yes, I do. I do. I don't think he realized, but I think it was the ass chewing that really sold me. The ass chewing is what really sold me.
What year is this?
This is 2009.
Okay. So, all right. So we joined the Marine Corps at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it was just that. It was the realism.
That realness. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I just picked the right recruiter at the right time. I don't know if I just said the right thing at the wrong time.
Yeah.
When he chewed my ass, you feel me? It just solidified everything that I don't know what happened. A switch just clicked and I was like, yes. And the moment that we had that conversation, I'll say like 6 or 7 months later, September of 2009. That happened in January. By September, I was already in boot camp.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it happened, dog. It happened fast. Yeah. I'm talking about like so fast that I was at work, like putting some stuff on there, and I get a call, and he like, so how you like your job? And I'm like, it's all right. And he's like, this, do you want to be a Marine? I said, yeah. And he's like this, all right, well, you lead a boot camp today. Like that fast. It happened that fast.
Oh shit. So you join the Marine Corps, you go to boot camp. What was it about what was going on in your life that you were said shitbag? Like what was it? Was it just a failure to adapt? Was it your leadership? Was it yourself? Like what do you think it was that was going on that created that?
Earlier, like when we first got started with this episode, you asked me what was it like to grow up in Detroit.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really find the words to describe what it would be like to grow up in Detroit until I finally left Detroit. And it took me to leave Detroit to finally understand why I was able to survive it for so long. And it showed in the military. And the reason why is because of just how hostile it is to grow up there. You know what I mean? Is imagine having a wild animal, right? And that wild animal ain't gonna really tell you anything bad about the jungle because it was born and raised there. It knows by instinct, it knows how to survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That does not translate over well when you join the military.
Yeah.
You know, by me, when I joined, you know, I wasn't accustomed to people just saying whatever they wanted to say to me and me not saying anything back or me not doing anything back. I can tell you right now, every place that I went to, I was getting into fights. Boot camp, got into a fight with my rack mate. MCT, I ended up getting into a fight with somebody over some shit that happened on duty. MOS school, fighting all through MOS school. As soon as I got to the fleet, my attitude and my facial expressions showed everything. And honestly, it once again, it came from the fact that I was still trying to make that transition. You know what I mean? Like how a lot of people are able to make that transition, like, oh, I'm in the military, I'm transitioning into becoming a Marine. That transition, I was a late bloomer when it came down to that, because I still just wasn't okay with it just didn't sit right with me that people could say something to you and you just couldn't say anything back. So just understand, like, I was always the one that was getting his ass chewed for things that I said, things that I wasn't going to do, things that I did do, and I take full responsibility for it because, I was still a 19-year-old kid doing 19-year-old shit.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I ended up getting put into the shitbag category where, like, hey, this Marine ain't going to last long. This Marine ain't going to be able to make that transition.
So it's I think, and I think also now, as both of us being staff sergeants and you transitioning through the Marine Corps in the time that you have, I think it's a fine line between, like, all right, I'm gonna say whatever the hell I want because you can't say nothing back, but because it has to be understood why it's going on. Mm-hmm. And do you think that's part of what it was? Maybe is that maybe the understanding of what was going on wasn't articulated to you in a good enough way?
100%. It'd be so many times where, like, you and I'm pretty sure you probably experienced this too as a junior Marine, where you wanted to know the why. You wanted to know the why. Yeah. And now here I am in a leadership position. I understand now, like, the why cannot always be provided. But there were times where I would be like, this don't make no fucking sense.
Yeah.
This don't make no sense. Or why is it that, why am I cleaning the catwalk when everybody else lives in this fucking barracks too? Shit like that. Or why do I have to tell first sergeant that I got a speeding ticket? Why, like little things like that, and don't get me wrong. I take full responsibility because there were definitely times where I was just doing regular PFC shit. I was already had a bad attitude.
Yeah.
I already had that. And then you add in the usual PFC things that I was already doing. It was a recipe for disaster. Yeah. But I definitely will say that I had good leadership. Let me rephrase. I had patient leadership.
Yeah, I did too. I think, and I think that's a thing that a lot of people realize, like, as we grow older, a lot of people don't realize that, because back in our day, back in 2009, when you come in the Marine Corps, even up to when I was a corporal and a sergeant, like, everything was an ass chewing, like that video that you were talking about today on Instagram.
Yes.
It's, to me, I was like, bro, what's the problem? There's no problem with that video. Like,
I didn't see anything wrong with it.
I saw no problem. Like, yo, that dude, and we don't know whose office they're in, but I'm assuming they're probably in a sergeant major's office or in master guns offices. They're in someone appointing office, and they made it through their way. So they've already probably gone through like 7 or 8 ass chewings in the day. And from our time, but and the problem is that you, like anything on Instagram or Facebook, you don't know anything else besides that's all you know is that three PFCs are getting chewed out and you don't know why. And that's the problem, because maybe they are in the wrong, maybe you have no idea. And I think that's a huge part of what goes on in the world is, like, instead of people just going up to PFCs and privates or lance corporals and just being like, hey man, what the hell is going on? Like, what is going on? Like, can we just have a sit down conversation and figure out what the hell is going on with you? Like, do you want to be here? Do you not want to be here? Do you need some help with some stuff? Because, like, for me, I remember being a PFC and a lance corporal, like, bro, I got chewed out every day. I got chewed out. I swear to God. Like, I got chewed out every single day of my life. The fact that I'm a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps, bro, there's people that literally still are like, I don't fucking believe that he's a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps.
Same.
And or like, bro, when I left to go on recruiting duty, when I tell you that I was like the biggest shitbag, my sergeant major, my battalion sergeant major, no, I'm sorry, my company first sergeant said to my battalion sergeant major the day he was signing off on my package to go to recruiting, my first sergeant just looked at him and was like, you're telling me that the recruiting command wants you to be the face of recruiting duty? That's literally what he said. I was a brand new promoted sergeant, and he goes, "You're telling me that the Marine Corps recruiting duty is indoor? Like they want us to hurry this package up?" Because at this time, like literally, the major was calling him, like, "Yo, where the hell is my paperwork?" And he was like, "I can't believe the Marine Corps wants you to be a recruiter." Like that's literally what this first sergeant said to me. And and I had other Marines like Staff Sergeant Gunnies that saying the same thing. And it was a lot of it was just because, like I said, like I had this shitbag reputation, where like when I was before we deployed to Afghanistan, when I was a PFC, bro, I got chewed out every single day for everything. And a huge part of it was I had this corporal where like he would chew me out if the slightest thing went wrong. And then I remember there was this one day where I was like in my head, I was like, yo, I got everything right. I was like, it's the dead of winter. I was like, I got my Gore-Tex, I got my pants, I got my boots, I got everything packed up. And tell me how I'm running to formation. And somehow, I don't know how, but one of my gloves falls out of my pocket and onto the ground. And I don't know that it fell on the ground. So I'm standing in formation and I'm hyped. I'm like, yo, I got everything. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And then all of a sudden comes walking up my corporal. And he just goes, Bennett. And I'm like, yo, I didn't do nothing. I'm just standing there in my head. I'm like, yo, I didn't do nothing. There's nothing going on. We're good. I'm good. He's just fucking with me. And he's like, Bennett, how many gloves do you have? And I was like, I got two, Corporal. He's like, no, the fuck you don't. And I go in my pocket and I'm like, fuck. And then there I go the rest of the day, flipping out, bugging out. And I'm like, God dang, man. And it was, but those things were like, I never had a calm, cool, collective conversation with this dude. In my whole deployment and everything, it's like, why couldn't you just come up to me and just talk to me? Why couldn't you just come up and just have a? And now, mind you, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with ass chewings. I believe they're needed. I believe the reason why a lot of the world which we live in is because they're gone. They're not like they used to be. But at some point, there comes a time where you got to sit down with said shitbag, or even if you're not a shitbag, you got to sit down with the mediocre guys and be like, hey man, what's going on? Is there something that you want to talk about because maybe you haven't gotten it out there? So yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just
No.
I feel like
Oh no, my bad. Keep going.
yeah, I just feel like there's so many people where it's just like instead of having a calm, cool, collective conversation, the only route that they have is ass chewing. And it's like that can't be your only tool. If ass chewing and micromanagement are your only two tools in the Marine Corps, then you need to get the hell out.
100%, man. 100%. I definitely agree. Before I answer that question, I just off topic real quick.
Yeah.
What year did you come in the Marine Corps?
2009.
2009. What year did you go? What month did you go to boot camp?
I went to boot camp in July. So July 20th of 2009 is when I was in boot camp.
Man, Bennett, the whole time when you said Bennett, I was like, was me and him in boot camp together? Because we came in the same year and I was trying to like wrap my head around it because I had heard your name and I was like, was me and him in boot camp together? But to answer your question, and it really goes back to me being a PFC.
Yeah.
When I was a PFC, I used to give, just like you, I used to get my ass chewed on a regular basis. You know what I mean? Like it sometimes was it warranted, sometimes it was warranted, sometimes it wasn't, and I always look at it like that. But at some point I had to really take a step back and ask myself, is this how I want my next 4 years to be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this was the hardest part right here, where a lot of people like, they always ask like, how do you make that transition from shitbag to top tier performer? And it has to start with you asking yourself that question. Like, is this my life? Like, is this what I want?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we can always go down the road of, like different type of leadership styles of, hey, I don't want, we can do the autocratic, we can do the democratic, we can do these different type of leadership styles of, hey, we can chew his ass all the damn time, or we can find out the discussion. That's just based off of the person.
Yeah.
But when I was a shitbag and I was getting my ass chewed, it finally came to a conclusion where I just sat back in my room and I was like, dog, like, I'm tired of getting my ass chewed. I'm tired of it. Like I don't want to get my ass chewed. And I was just like you. I got everything together. And immediately I started like just like hoping that this was gonna be the right moment that for me. You know what I mean? Like I'm excited. I'm showing up, my uniform together, and guess what happens? I fucked something else up and got my ass chewed again. You know, and I just kept telling myself, like, this isn't exactly what I want. Now, to go back to the other question, as far as like, are ass chewings always necessary? I would go on to say that no, they're not always necessary. You know, I'm pretty sure that we both know how now to articulate our words. I feel like ass chewings is just one weapon that you can use or one tool that you can use. I just feel like it's always the one that gets used because it's the easiest one to be able to use.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that when people use it so much, people are like, all right, you know what? I'm not even fuck with that dude.
You see what I'm saying?
Like, it's just like, bro, I don't even want to talk to you. I don't even want to know anything about you. Like, because I know that even if I ask you a question to understand something, you can be like, why the fuck are you asking me this question? I mean, and it's like, you know, I think that's a huge part of it. And I think that that's why it got, like, I don't want to say disbanded, but I think because now you don't hear about it. You don't hear about, you know, or at least I don't personally. I feel like it's a lost art, because I think that an ass chewing is an art. You know, I think it's something that should be done correctly. You know what I mean? And it has to be done with a level of, you know, like I said, it's an art.
I 100% agree.
You know, just screaming at somebody isn't chewing somebody out. And again, it's like, it has to be warranted, and it has to be impactful in some type of way. Because the thing is that there can be a motivational ass chewing. You know what I mean? Because it's like you're talking about, right? You're saying that one day I'm sitting in my room and all of a sudden I realized, you know, this is who I want to be and this is who I want to act. Okay, well, the reality of it is that why wasn't there somebody there coming at you like, yo, Meech, is this who you want to be? Is this the person that you're acting like right now, the person that you want to be? Is this the person that you wanted to be when you joined the Marine Corps? You know, a year ago, 2 years ago, you know, if you were looking at yourself now, would you be happy with yourself? Is this where you want to see yourself? And then you, because of having that conversation, maybe this would have happened, this realization could have happened earlier on.
You know 100%. I will go on to even say this, man. Just and I feel like you hit the nail right on the head. Ass chewing is an art. It's not a personality trait. You know, and I feel like a lot of times, like, you know, it loses its potency, or we look at it in such an ugly light because people try to make it a personality trait. It's an art. It's the ability to be able to raise your voice and be able to articulate it in a way to address a problem about somebody. That's an art. That's a skill that takes time to be able to develop. But the thing is that we get into this whole mindset that it's a personality trait. Like, oh, well, you know, then you become unapproachable. You can still be approachable and light somebody to fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, you can be like, trust me, I'm by far one of the most approachable people that you will ever meet. You feel me? I try to smile. I try to be charismatic. I set this bitch off like the 4th of July, the first chance I get. You know, because it's not a personality trait. It's not one of my personality traits. It's just an art that I fine-tuned over time. And a lot of Marines, like you see them and they chew some ass, or they try to chew, they become the ass chewer. That should just be a tool. You know what I mean? Like, you should still be able to pull somebody off to the side and be able to stern talk to them. You should still be able to pull somebody off to the side and be like this, like, bro, like, that ain't, I don't know what the hell's going on, bro, but that ain't the move right there. That ain't the energy.
And that's it too, is that a lot of people, you know, and these are things that should be taught while you're in the Marine Corps, but I feel like a lot of times these things just fall to the wayside. But the reality of it is that not every, even if it is an ass chewing, not every ass chewing needs to be a public ass chewing. Like, not everybody got to know that this dude forgot his boot blouses, or not everybody got to know that this dude lost a glove. Like, no, because now you're just trying to highlight the dude.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And I think that's a huge part of it, that people, again, it's a fine-tuned ass chewing. Like, it's an art to it. Because, you know, I remember like the most, bro, I was on recruiting duty for 4 years, and I hadn't been around junior Marines in 4 years. So I haven't given an ass chewing in I don't know how long, because I was around sergeants, staff sergeants, and higher. So ass chewing is like, did I ever get mad at my Marines in the office? But I'm not gonna ask you a sergeant. Like I'm not gonna talk like that. So it was a professionalism talk or whatever. So I remember I went back to my reserve unit, and it was like my third or fourth drill, and I have yet to raise my voice. I've been kind of in the background, and it was one weekend. It was a CFT, and PFT, my bad. And we get done running the PFT or whatever, and I had already ran the PFT. I already had it in score, so I didn't run it that day because they were only allowing people who needed to run it. And I'm at our motor T shop, and I'm in the motor pool, and all of a sudden I get a call from one of my Marines, and he's like, "Hey, Staff Sergeant." I'm like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "So somebody cheated on the PFT." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, how do we figure this out? Like, do you have proof, or like, is there hearsay? Like, what are we talking about? And he's like, no, like, we all saw it. He's like, we saw the Marine jump into the woods, hop out of the woods, and finish his runtime. And I'm like, bro, I've been at this unit for 13 years, and I ain't never heard some shit like this. I'm like, bro, there's no way. So the court, it was a sergeant who called me and told me. I'm like, all right, listen. I was like, let's get everybody back. I was like, don't say nothing about it. Let's get everybody back so we can just handle this in-house before the freaking whole company, finds out about this shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. So I go to my my fellow staff sergeant and I tell her, and she's like, no way. She's the same thing. She's like, bro, I've been here for 14 years. This has never happened. Like, no way. So the sergeant comes up, and I'm like, all right, well, I was like, who did you hear this from? And who's the eyewitness? Like, do we have an eyewitness? Like, did somebody legitimately see this happen? And he's like, yeah, Corporal so-and-so. And this dude, Corporal so-and-so, is, you would this is that Marine that would never lie. Like, this dude's integrity is upon reproach. And you know for a fact that this dude would never lie to you. So this dude, and the way that he talks, like, I love the dude. But he comes up to you, he's like, yes, Sergeant. Yes, Sergeant. Yes, this is happening. Yes, this is happening. So we're like, hey man, Corporal so-and-so, like, come and talk to us. So me and the other staff are come behind the building, and he comes and he's do this quiz. He stays at parade rest, and he's like, yes, Sergeant, I saw the whole entire thing. And he's like, I watched it happen. He's like, I subdued the Marine. And I'm like, we're like,
God damn, bionic, man.
He's like, he's straight out. He's like, yes. So there I was. And this is how he tells the story, bro. He's like, so there I was running my PFT. I'm at 1.5 miles. And all of a sudden I see said name Marine hop off to the left. And I'm like, that's not how the trail works.
Telling it like he writing a counseling.
Yo, literally, he's like, said name Marine. And he's like, as I'm running, I realize he didn't come out. And he goes, I'm in first place. He goes, I'm on my second lap. And then all of a sudden I look behind me, and he's behind me. And he's like, there's no way. And he's like, that's when I knew, Staff Sergeant, that he cheated. And he's like, I saw it with my own eyes. And I'm like, are you sure? He's like, unequivocally. He goes, I will sign. He goes, I will swear in front of the CO himself. He goes, I'm not about ratting somebody out, but that's about integrity. And you're cheating on a PFT. And we're just like, hey, you're not wrong, man. So I literally end up getting all the Marines together, and I just asked them, like, so y'all want to tell me something? Because something happened, and somebody's going to tell me something, or we're just going to be here all day. Like, I played that game, and no one's looking around, no one's saying nothing, and I just fucking lost it. I was like, and I bugged out, and I was like, I've been in this unit for 12 years. I was like, I've been to other places, but this is my home. I was like, I just got off recruiting duty. And I was like, I have never, ever been as disrespected as I am today. And I freaking lost it. I was like, I'm not saying who, but I was like, I just know that it's you. And I know that you were you. And I freaking lost it. And I was like, so if you don't come up to me at the end of this formation, just know that I already know that it's you. So and I freaking lost it, bro. And I do literally, and then my corporal came up behind me, and I was like, listen to me. I already did enough. You don't need to go after me. And it was just that, like, it was that subtle ass chewing where I just flipped the hell out, because I was like, bro, you just made this whole entire motor pool look like pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And then we found out that it wasn't even just him. There was more. So we were like, bro. And then the worst, bro, it gets worse. It gets worse. The battalion sergeant major was at this PFT. And he was at the PS. So when he was at this PFT, the gunner, and we find this all out as we're trying to figure it all out. And we start putting more and more pieces to the puzzle. And we talked to the monitor of the CFT, of the PFT. I'm like, Gunny, I'm like, hey, I was like, did anything happen? And he just goes, all I know is when the PFT was done, as they were all running in, I said, if after this number, you better come see me. And they were like, but the sergeant goes, but there was one. He goes, there was one that never finished. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, how do you know? He goes, because I remember when the run started, I complimented his new neon Nikes. And I said, yo, those are nice ass shoes. And he said, thank you, Sergeant. And at the end of the run, I never saw them bitches because he's like, I would have remembered them. So I ended up being the dude that was the one that from our platoon. And he literally was like, I had him go upstairs. I was like, hey, are these the shoes? And he goes, oh, those are the shoes. He goes, those are them. So they had them all rerun the PFT the next day because there were so many people that cheated that they had no proof of who it was. So they were like, all right, well, let's see. And then they checked the PFTs from the last PFT and they were like, all right, well, how did you cut 4.5 minutes off in a month? Like, bro, come on.
No way.
Like, there ain't no way. So we're all saying that, bro. It was funny as hell though. So getting back to you, what was it? So you just sit in your room, you start having this realization and you start trying to get better. What was it that at this time, like, I'm assuming at this time you were probably like, yo, I'm probably not going to stay in the Marine Corps. At that time when you were at your lowest, I'm assuming you never thought about being a staff sergeant or being where you're at now.
To be honest with you, when I joined the military, the whole opportunity was, the mindset behind it was, I'm doing this so I can get out of Detroit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that was the goal. That was the plan. That was the mission. And I remember sitting in my room, right? And I'm saying to myself, like, you said that you wanted to leave Detroit, but it feels like you about to end up right back in Detroit sooner than later. Because you want to make a career out of this. At the time I wanted to make a career out of this.
Okay.
But it just felt like as if no matter what I was doing, and it sucked being a shitbag. You know what I mean? Like, it really does suck being a shitbag because when you in a shitbag, you get shitbag privileges. And when I mean privileges, them bitches is not privileges. Them bitches, they need a working party Marine. Trust me, you own it. And I remember sitting there and I just asked myself, like, is this really what I want my 4 years to be? Do I really want to, is this what is this how I view success? And I remember when that moment happened, I had to ask myself, like, what can I do to fix this? And I started thinking about the Marines that don't get their ass chewed. You see what I'm saying? Like, they say things, but they don't get their ass chewed. I started picking up other people's mannerisms. There was a Marine in my platoon, and his name was Brennan. His name was Brennan. And I remember Brennan because Brennan was very facetious. He was very facetious, very sarcastic. This motherfucker used to say a lot of things, but he always said it in such a sarcastic manner. Nobody knew that Brennan was actually serious. And I started to pay it.
That's me. I'm good like that. I'll just slide through.
Man, hey, look, I'm gonna tell you right now, I studied him. I'm talking about I would linger around Brennan and just listen to how he spoke to people and what he would say and the things of how he said it. And I started to pick up his cues and I just started to pay attention to things. Mind you, there were days where I would relapse and I would get my ass chewed and stuff like that. But bro, it was such a frustrating moment, man. And, a lot of people always say, like, like a lot of people think that, the transition from, shitbag Marine to a all right Marine or an average Marine is like a night and day thing. That's just like, I'll say, like, it's a 6-month process. It's a 6 month to a year process, bro, because it's not just, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and then it's always there. Like, even when you're a great Marine, you still have those shitbag tendencies that linger.
100%. You feel me? Like it's like a habit
true to yourself.
You feel me? Like it's a habit that you're trying to kick, and you're always fighting against like your better judgment of what you should do. Yeah. And I remember trying to make this progress where, like I would tell myself, like, I'll go one day without getting my ass chewed.
Mhm.
And when I would make it one day, I'd be like, all right, let's go 2 days. Let's go 3 days. Next, I get my ass chewed and it will feel like I just restarted back to zero. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the hardest part about it is that it takes a certain level of patience, not with yourself, but with everyone else around you. Because motherfuckers think like, just because I said I'm not going to be a shitbag no more, that don't mean anything. You feel me? Like that don't mean anything. Like your leadership ain't forgot that you fucked up. Like the people around you ain't forgot that you fucked up. You know what I mean? Like motherfuckers still view you as a shitbag. It takes time for them to start to see you in a different light. And it takes you have to acquire a certain level of merit amongst your peers first before you can actually make that full transition. And that was really when I knew that I was starting to make progress. Once I won my peers over, I knew I was good. I knew I was good when I won them over.
Yeah. So talking about that, like the sarcasm, right? So I was at a course at a staff for the recruit while I was on recruiting duty, and I was at the staff and COIC course, and we were at this course, and it's a 2-week course, and every day when you start the course, there's 4 groups, and throughout the course you get points every day. It was like something to like build camaraderie, and at the end of it you're going to win something, right? So every day you do questions and you're learning about recruiting duty or whatever, and every day you get tally marks, and then at the end of the day everybody who's higher, and then at the very last day they do like a game so that the last person wins, and then you get to take just the prize of winning home or whatever. Right. So about a week, so it was like I said, no, it was 2 weeks long. So about 2 days before the course ended, one of our it was the day before our course ended, one of our Marines had to leave the course early. So when we were doing the final activity, I looked over at the master sergeant who was running the class, and I was like, hey, Master Sergeant. He's like, what's up, Bennett? I was like, since we lost Charles, do we get some kind of handicap? And I was like, because now we're 1 down for the whole course. And he's like, oh no, Bennett, I thought you were handicapped since you were on their team the whole time. And I looked over at him and I was just like, oh shit, I thought it was because you were our instructor this whole time. I thought I was gonna have one for the rest of my life. And he was just like, Bennett, get your ass out of this room right now. And I'm like, and so he chews my ass in front of the whole classroom, tells me to leave the room. And then I'm standing in the hallway with him. And none of the other instructors were in the room, which one of my boys was the instructor. And he's just like, who the hell do you think you are? I was like, Master. I was like, you made the joke at me. And all I did was just throw it right back at you. I was like, you just as disrespectful as you were being to me, I was just throwing it right back at you. You don't talk to a math sergeant like that. I was like, so then why were you talking to me like that? I was like, hey, bro, shit was hilarious, bro. And another time, funny shit, when I was on recruit, so people say that I look like Mr. Bean. I don't know if you see it, but
I don't see it. No, I don't see it.
People say that I look like Mr. Bean, and it's followed me my whole career. And so we were doing this thing when I was on recruiting duty, where every day when contracts would roll, they would create this thing called the final ticket or whatever. And they would put, when you wrote a contract, they would put a picture up, like a meme, and then they would write something underneath it. So I started getting really good and I was writing contracts, but every day, the only picture they would post would be a Mr. Bean picture. So this one day I said to the Master Guns, he came to the office and I was like, yo, Master Guns, this is like 4 months in. I'm like, Master Guns. I was like, listen, I'm all for it. I think it's all funny. But I was like, could you guys like get something funnier? And he goes, what? You want my dick on your fucking forehead? And I was like, oh shit. I was like, nah, I'm good, Master Guns. Like, I'm good on that. So he's like, nah, well, you know what? Whatever, Bennett. He goes, well, I'll find something better for you. So I go over to my recruiter. Now, mind you, I go to my boss. Now, mind you, at the time, before I became a recruiter, I used to be a mailman for the post office. So I have the whole entire getup, right? And they say when you're good at recruiting, they call you the Batman or they call you the mailman, like because shipping is king.
Okay.
So shipping is king. So and mailmen ship, right? You ship your packages or whatever. So
Okay.
so I thought about all this on my own. I was like, all right, no doubt. So we go to the all hands to get our awards, and I bring my mailman uniform with me and I put it in a bag. And I knew that I was about to get recruiter of the month, recruiter of the quarter, and a whole bunch of other awards. Like my buddy had told me this. So right before awards, I walk into the bathroom and walk into the head and I change over and I come out in the mailman short shorts and the mailman blue shirt and the raincoat hat. And I come walking out and I'm like, hey, everybody. And I go up, I get my awards, and all of a sudden I said, Master Guns, this is for you. So he turns around and he goes, somebody remind that motherfucker that I could fire him right now. And I was just like, shit was funny as hell, bro. And then my CEO shook my hand. He was like, yo, Bennett, I ain't never seen nobody go at Master Guns like that. I was like, sir, he asked for it. Like, he's playing with me every day. I was like, so I just threw it back at him. And he got so freaking, this Master Guns, bro, bugged the fuck out. Like, got so tight about it. But nah, that shit was funny as hell though. But no, that was a random ass rant. But so but you gotta keep the shit back. You know what I mean? Like, even when you get good, you gotta remind people it's still back there.
Like, despite all the progress that I'm making right here, just understand, man. Like, it's tucked away. It's tucked away.
Yo, it's in my cargo. It's in my cargo pocket, man.
You know, just in case, like, just in case of emergencies.
Yeah, bro, that or like, bro, and I don't know if I know this is like, those one of those shitbag moments where it's a shitbag moment, but at the same time, like, you kind of want to give yourself justice for it. You're like, but is it really that bad? Like,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So the commanding general,
right,
and the command sergeant and the Marine Corps recruiting district general and the Marine Corps recruiting district sergeant major come to my office on recruiting duty, and they show up in these suits, and they're like, hey, we want to sit down, we want to talk to you guys, and they're with my sergeant major Allen. And Sergeant Major Allen is probably one of the coolest men I've ever met in my life.
Right.
But his switch will just pop off.
100%.
Like his switch, like, if it needs to pop, his shit will pop.
Yes.
So him and the command, so the general, the 2-star general and the sergeant major come, and we're just talking about recruiting duty, and they're there and they both give me their coin, right? So they both go, we dab it up, they give me their coin. And as they give me their coin, like, imagine you're actually sitting there, on Zoom, but you're sitting there and you're the general, and I'm sitting directly across from you, and you just look down at my core frames, and they literally are just disgusting. They've got scuffs all over them. My toes are like this, like elf shoes, like the garbagest of garbage core frames. Now, mind you, at this time, it's 2 years into me being on recruiting duty, and I've had these bitches for probably about 10 years. Like, I've never gone up, bro. I wear them every day. So I was just like, I didn't think about it. I didn't think, like, hey, the 2-star general, the sergeant major about to come see me, I should probably put, better core frames on. I didn't think about it. So they both just stand up. Like, literally, they look at my core frames and they just stand up. And they go, have a good day, gentlemen. And they walk out. Bro. Now, when they did this, Sergeant Major Allen, his eyes met the general's eyes, and they both looked down at my feet. So I had the district sergeant major, the sergeant major, and the general, all three of their eyes, 3 pairs of eyes staring down at my feet. And then they all get up and they walk out the door. As they walk out the door, Sergeant Major Allen says, gentlemen, I'll be with you in a moment. And he closes the door behind him, and he just looks at me and he goes, Bennett, what in the actual fuck is wrong with you? He goes, are you kidding me? He starts bugging out, and he looks at me and he goes, listen to me very carefully. I said, yes, Sergeant Major. He goes, congratulations on your 2 beautiful coins. I'm not going to take that away from you. But he goes, you're going to go back into that closet. You're going to change over. You're going to go to the PX. You're going to buy a new pair of core frames. And then you're going to take those dirty ass core frames and put them on my motherfucking desk. And I said, Sergeant Major,
No.
you want me to put my dirty ass core frames on your desk? And he goes, yes, Bennett. That's what I fucking said. I said, good to go, Sergeant Major. And then he goes, good to go? Good to go? I was just like,
I could have told you that this wasn't gonna end well. This ain't even my story. I'm already playing it in my head. This is not ending well.
So I'm just like, yes, Sergeant Major, I'll do that right now. So I get in my car, I drive over to the PX. The PX is on the base where the headquarters is at. So I go, I hop in, get my new core frames, boom, throw them in the car, and then I take my old core frames and I walk in, and my CEO is in the building. He goes, Bennett, what are you doing here? I was like, giving Sergeant Major my core frames. He goes, why? I was like, oh. So now I had to tell him this whole entire story. I'm like, bro. So he's like, Bennett, really? I was like, yes, sir, I fucked up. He goes, all right, well, get back to your job. So I go and I put him on his desk. I walk out. He goes, as I'm walking out, Sergeant Major drives by me. He goes, hey, where's the receipt? Let me see the receipt. I was like, here it is, Sergeant. He goes, they're on my desk. Bro, that dude, for the next 2 years, literally every single time people would check in, he would take my core frames and say, your shoes better not ever motherfucking look like this. You understand me? And every single time, bro. So like I was, even though I was really good at recruiting duty for 4 years, bro, everybody knew that story about these core frames. They were like, really, bro? Like you couldn't just change them like before the 2-star walked in? I was like, bro, these are the ones that I grinded every day.
Oh man.
So yeah, bro, that shit was funny as hell.
I saw that coming. Every point I saw that coming. I can't say that I've been in a situation like that, but I definitely been in a lot of similar situations. But I saw it coming, man. I saw it coming.
So how does it? So now with you, so now how long did that transition take for you to become a better Marine? Like I know that you're talking that you said you're a martial arts instructor. So how did that, and how did you do it? Like how did you make the transition happen to, said shitbag to better Marine?
I think honestly, man, like to from shitbag to average, that took about like 6 months, almost to a year. You know what I mean? From shitbag to top tier performer, that took damn near 5 years. That took 5 years. And I say it took 5 years because, a lot of people don't know, but a lot of people do know, is that I got NJP when I was a corporal. I got battalion level NJP. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that's the hardest part right there. That was the hardest part about like my journey in the military, is that here I go working my ass off from PFC all the way to Lance Corporal to finally be acknowledged by my peers and finally be acknowledged by my superiors, to get put up on boards, X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Finally get, deployed to Afghanistan, finally get promoted to corporal. And I'm the best corporal I'm the best corporal within my platoon. And then boom, I get NJP'd. And that NJP knocks me all the way. I wouldn't say it knocks me back down at shitbag level, but it knocked me back down a couple of pegs. You know what I mean? And it was like, fuck, man, like I make all of this progress. You know what I mean? Like I make all of this progress to get to where I'm at. And one mistake has now fucked me.
Yeah.
And, now looking back on it, I always tell people is that NJP probably was the best thing that ever happened to me in my military career.
Yeah.
Like my NJP was literally like one of the best things that could have happened because of what route I was already going down and what route that it ended up sending me down.
Yeah.
After getting NJP, I didn't have the luxury of, I was always going to be second place. And I knew that I was going to be second place. So
Yeah.
I never had the luxury to ever be in cruise control. I never had that, damn man, like, you know, I can oversleep or I can do this or I can do, you know, X, Y. I never had that luxury anymore because when you're an NJP Marine, you have to perform. You have to
Yeah,
outperform
because
everybody else.
it follows you everywhere, no matter what.
It follows you everywhere, man. And like the military, like, you know, yeah, we always sit back and we say we don't have a no defect mentality, but it's easier said than done. You know what I mean? Like as soon as I would check into a new unit, you know, they could look at my pros and cons and tell like, why does he have a 4.1, you know, 3.9? You know what I mean? Like, what did he do? What did he get in JP for? You pull up my record. If I go up on a board, you're gonna see it.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, like, hey, this Marine has been in JP. So I always had to be a top tier performer. And you know, that goes from I became a martial arts instructor. You know, I was a corporal then I went to the IT course and became a martial arts instructor trainer. You know, so I was a corporal as an IT. And still, regardless, I was always going to be second place. So I ended up becoming like a top tier performer when I finally picked up sergeant. But for like those 5 years, man, second place was the best place I was ever going to be at.
It's crazy because I have a buddy who I didn't even know this story until he came on my podcast and shared it with me. But he was out in he went out to Mexico, and he went out to Mexico, and what happened was he got drunk, and he got back in his car, and he thought it was his car, but it wasn't his car. He had broken into somebody else's car and drove, and he ends up getting arrested for Grand Theft Auto.
No.
And yeah, and he literally is like, I thought it was my car, but I guess like the person had left the keys in it. He hopped in the car. He gets literally as far as to like driving the car, and he gets pulled over, and it's like, bro, license registration. He's like, nah, it's not my car. And he's like, so he gets arrested for Grand Theft Auto. And
no.
yeah, and he, you know, and the thing was is that he got out. No one would have ever known that he got arrested.
Right.
But he just had the balls to call his platoon. At the time he was a corporal. He just called his platoon sergeant, and he was like, hey, listen, I'm gonna be real. Like, I got arrested for Grand Theft Auto. And they filed it up all the way through the chain of command. And his command was like literally immediately like, and he was a top tier performer when this happened.
Uh-huh.
And his command was like, we're gonna fry him. And all of a sudden there was the sergeant major who was like, you're gonna fry the Marine who just came to you and told you he did this and he didn't have to? Like 2 weeks ago, this dude literally was your best Marine. And now all of a sudden, because he fucked up one time, you're gonna just throw him to the wolves? Mm-hmm. And he was like, we need to have this conversation. And literally, I'm pretty sure I think he did still get NJP, but he was just like, and he said the same thing. He was like, bro, I changed my life around. Like, he's like, now I don't drink nearly as much as I used to, or at all. And he was like, it just made me realize what I can lose and what I have to lose. And I think that's, you know, unfortunately, I think that's how a lot of people have to learn, you know, in order for them to be better in certain ways. So let's transition to who is Meech? First of all, where did the nickname come from? And then what made you start the podcast, and what is your podcast about?
So Meech is short for Demetrius. I've always been called well, as a child, they used to call me Meechy. And as I got older, I realized I was like, you know, Meechy just isn't something I wanted to be known as. Like I just felt like I was just too old for people to be called like grown ass men calling me Meechy. You feel me? So like I just started telling everybody just to call me Meech. Mm-hmm. Now I added the speaks to it because I'm a professional speaker. Like, you know, I'm a speaker. And that right there is a story in itself. You know what I mean? And it really, that story is how I got into podcasting. Now, been a martial arts instructor trainer at that time. I think I would say like about 4 years, 5 years. I had already been an IT, and I'm doing, you know, I'm doing the typical McMap classes, MAI courses. I have to get out there. I have to speak on a regular basis, talk about the tie-ins, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
This moment right here, I'm thinking this is just a part of the job. You know what I mean? Like everybody has to give tie-ins at some point. So one day I'm going to go see the First Sergeant. And it was just regular company business that I just so happened to go up to company that day. So I get the company and First Sergeant look over at me. And he like, hey, Thigpen, Sergeant Major wants you to go speak at Lance Corporal seminar. I looked at him like, for what? I was like, what Sergeant Major want me to go over there and say? You see what I'm saying? Like, I ain't got nothing to say to them. And he was like, Sergeant Major heard you speak before, and she really wants you to go over there. I said, bro, all right, I'll go over there. You feel me? I ain't call First Sergeant bro, but I mean, I said that.
Yeah.
I was like,
you were like, all right, word.
All right, I could go First Sergeant. I guess I'll go. Yeah. So I go over there and I sit down. I'm at Lance Corporal seminar. I'm the guest speaker for this Lance Corporal seminar. To be honest with you, I don't know what I'm about to say. I don't know what I'm about to say to these Lance Corporals. To be honest with you, I've also chewed their ass a couple of times. You feel me? Like there's a couple of Lances in there that I chewed their ass prior to me even being there. So I don't know what I'm supposed to say because I was a line NCO. All I did was like, just, do my job. I've never really, dove deep in the motivational aspect of it like that. So I'm here and, this dollar, like, I don't know if you ever heard this, the dollar tie-in. And this guy, he grabs a dollar and he says like, this is $1. If I crumble it up right now, would it be $1? If I folded it up, would it still be $1? What if I rip it up? Would it still be $1? Regardless of the situation, the value of this money has never changed. So I ask you, why has yours? A lot of people are sitting here and they're saying like based off of their adversity and how they've been crumbled or stepped on or ripped up that their value has changed. But the reality is that it has never changed. And I kicked that. And after I got done, this Marine, she comes up to me. And she just get to crying. You know what I mean? Like she get to crying. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, the fuck is you crying about? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, what you crying about? And she says that what I said really touched her, like it really hit her. Yeah. And she's like, I'm the dollar. And I'm going to just be 100% with you, bro. Like I was really sitting there this entire time and I'm not realizing that I got a gift. Like I didn't even realize I had a gift. Yeah. So that next week is ironic because, I was complaining about going to Lance Corporal seminar to go speak, but I also had got selected to go to a college and speak too. You feel me? It just so happened that those two just happened like a week apart from each other. So I end up going to this college. Now I'm sitting on a panel with all of these prestige gentlemen. Like I'm talking about these men as CEOs. They got doctorates. They got masters. I'm the only one in there that dropped out of college. But what they wanted us to convey, what they wanted us to talk to all of these students in front of it, it was about like 150. They said the message that they wanted to convey was, how have you overcame adversity? Now, growing up in Detroit, raised by a single parent, father who was an addict, came from the bottom in the military and worked my way up to where I am right now. I know a little bit about, overcoming adversity. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I speak. I was the last one to speak. And when I spoke for the first time, it felt like as if my words were like coming out and they were just painting the room. Like I was just like an artist, the way I was painting the room. Teachers get to standing up, give me a standing ovation. I'm talking about everybody clapping and everything like that. And these teachers, they coming up to me like, you lit a fire within me that I didn't even know I had. And I'm sitting there this whole time, bro. Like I'm sitting there and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. I'm not realizing it. You feel me? I'm still not realizing. Yeah. But something told me like, I got to hurry up and get out of here. You feel me? Because emotion now is starting to overwhelm me. Yeah. I get to the car, I grab a cigarette. Before I could even light the cigarette, tears start coming down my face. Oh shit. And for the first time, I felt alive. Now you got to think about it. At this point right here, I'm at my 10-year mark in the Marine Corps. Yeah, I've been deployed. I've watched my kids be born. I've held them, and I've always, I never felt alive. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like I've always just existed. You know what I mean? Like I was just doing things that humans would do just to get by to the next point. Yeah. And for the first time, I felt alive. And that's when I realized that this is what I was supposed to do.
Mm.
Literally, I'm talking about the next week I launched the podcast, Extraordinary Thoughts for the Ordinary Mind.
Yeah.
And that podcast, you know, and you actually the first one that I actually talk about this out loud with, you know, as I move away from that podcast was made out of my own depression. You know what I mean? Like I made that podcast because I felt like I just didn't have nowhere else to talk. I didn't have nowhere else to vent, you know, and I always talk about adversity and I could never find a place to direct my thoughts. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Extraordinary Thoughts for the Ordinary Mind was the reality that a lot of extraordinary thoughts come from ordinary people. But we always view ourselves as ordinary because we're not on social media. We're not trending. We're not, you know, we're not the popular thought-provoking people. But in reality, that's where most of the extraordinary thoughts came. I launched that podcast and took off from there.
Yeah. That's dope, man.
I appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, that's dope. So so one of the things you were talking about, it's so one of the thing that you do with the dollar,
Yeah.
I did this thing. It's kind of like that, but so my boy taught me how to do it, and then the way that I always like to take what you do and then make it better, or at least I think it's better. So my boy, Gunny Ledbetter, he he was doing this thing. He was at 8412. He is 8412, and he was teaching us sales. And what he did is he took a penny, and he showed you the penny, and he was like, "Look at this penny." And you're like, okay, I see a penny. Then he took a jar full of pennies, and then he put you in the jar of pennies. And then he just closed it and he wrapped like this, and then he put all the pennies on the table. And he'd be like, "Do you see the difference? Pick your penny." And you'd be like, "Well, I can't because they're all the same." And he'd be like, "So do you want to be different? Or do you want to be the same? You want to just be another penny?" So that's what he did. So then what I did was I had this coin, this Marine Corps, it was like a poker chip. So what I did was I did the exact same thing, but what I would do in my interviews, and I'll do at the end of my interviews, I would tell you to pick a penny. And then I would put it inside, I'd wrap it up, and then everyone would be like, "Bro, I know what you're gonna do." Da, da, da. So then I would go into my desk and I would pull out that coin. And as I laid all the pennies on the ground or on the table, I would take my coin and I would just slap it on top. And I'd be like, "Do you want to be a penny or do you want to be a fucking Marine?" And then they'd be like, "Oh shit." I'd be like, "Because can you tell the difference?" And they'd be like, "Yeah." So I did that shit too. But you know, and I think that's it. And that's why I like the name of that podcast, man. It's because that's the reality of it. You know, is a lot of ordinary people become extraordinary. You know, they have these different ideas and stuff, and then you know they come to fruition. So what's next for you? What's the next thing you got going on?
The next project, and you know, like I spoke about extraordinary thoughts in a past tense, because when I started that podcast, I was new to podcasting. I was new to the overall experience of it. And once again, you know, I have been doing that podcast for almost 2 years, you know, but you know, excuse, like, this is really very seldom do I get like jumbled up with my words, but I'm moving away from extraordinary thoughts for the ordinary mind and starting the podcast, the Not So Meritorious podcast.
Yeah.
You know, and the reason why I wanted to do the Not So Meritorious podcast, and I kind of feel like the Not So Meritorious podcast is not what extraordinary thoughts would have been. I think this is the next level of what extraordinary thoughts would have been if I would have stayed there.
Got you.
And I say that because, you know, going into that podcast, I wanted to be a self-improvement podcast, you know, like one of those, like, you know, mental health niches.
Yeah.
But I always talked about topics on Extraordinary Thoughts with very vaguely, you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, did they hit? Absolutely. But I always tried to cater to a civilian audience. But 90% of the people that listen to me are in the military.
Yeah.
And it always became frustrating because to be honest with you, outside of your podcast, and I think like a couple others, there's not that many podcasts that really talk to the military member. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I say they don't talk to the military member, yeah, you can go to any and you can go to a couple of military podcasts and they'll tell you how to be a great NCO.
Yeah.
They'll tell you, all the strategical plans that are going on, but those are the same strategical plans that you can see on CNN.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the same shit. A lot of the times, like you see a lot of military niche podcasts is that they're talking about the exact same shit that shows up on our MSN homepages right before we log into MOL to submit the morning report.
Yeah.
And when we actually do talk about those military topics, like depression, divorce, being a shitbag, overcoming the odds, we always tiptoe. Let me rephrase that. We always pussyfoot around it because we don't want to dive too deep because we don't want to hurt everybody's feelings.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to create a place where we could talk about it. That's why I always tell people that it's not just it's the military podcast that's telling your story, not just my story, but yours.
Exactly, bro. And that's what I wanted to do with mine too, is because, for me, that's exactly, I agree 100% with you, because a lot of people, when I started my podcast, everybody was like, oh, so what are you going to do? Be another Joe Rogan, another Jocko Willink, or whoever, or I was like, no. And then, but what are they going to talk about? And I was like, that's why I have episodes about alcoholism. I have episodes about depression, because, one of my buddies got kicked out of the Marine Corps for alcoholism. He got kicked out of the Marine Corps for a pattern of misconduct, and he didn't talk about it for 10 years. Nobody knew why he was kicked out of the Marine Corps. He never told anybody. He literally, the day he showed up from Hawaii to his house on Christmas Day, he never told his parents why he was kicked out of the Marine Corps. He came home on leave. He told them he was home on leave. And then 3 weeks went by and he never went back. And then eventually they were like, you got to go back, don't you? And then that's when he started talking to them. Well, actually, I got kicked out of the Marine Corps. And then he ended up, going through a spiral, and he literally didn't tell nobody. Nobody knew that he was kicked out of the Marine Corps for alcoholism and for other things. But, he comes on my podcast and he talks about it. But for me, that's what it was. And especially someone like you being on active duty, you're someone who sees this every day. Mm-hmm. My biggest thing was, and I was talking to one of my mass sergeants about it, was, bro, I've been in the Marine Corps going on 13 years. And in 13 years, what have we done to combat suicide and depression and alcoholism? What do we do? We do annual training that is some Marines with some bad acting on a video. Yeah. Then we do some, all right, here's a click through that you got to go through on MarineNet. They're going to ask you some questions. He's going to talk to you about tobacco awareness, and then sign here and make sure everybody's on the roster. And then, hey, Staff Sergeant so-and-so, make sure it gets ran in training. Okay. But what did that do for anybody? It did absolutely nothing. It did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. But what if there were people who felt comfortable enough to stand in front of those Marines and tell them their story at Lance Corporal Seminar? What if Sergeant Major so-and-so, like right now I have two Sergeant Majors who just recently retired, who are going to come on and talk on the podcast and just talk about the things that they went through, because they battled suicide, they battled PTSD, they battled all, alcoholism, divorce, all those things, but they still managed to retire. And that's the thing, is that nobody talks about that. No one, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about it. But the reality of it is that if we had those conversations before it was too late, then we wouldn't have to have the actual repercussions of it, because nobody wants to talk about it. But if we actually sat there and talk about, hey man, like I had a buddy of mine had 3 strokes. No, my bad. I always go a little too hard in the paint. He had 1 stroke and then he had 2 panic attacks while he was on recruiting duty. But he survived 3 years on recruiting duty. And he came on the show. He talked about it. He dealt with the alcoholism. He dealt with depression. And that's the thing, is that when you go through a different, different billets, you go through different things, nobody ever talks about the shit they went through to get on top. And you don't and nobody relates to anybody. And then the worst part about it is that when you're going through any of those things, whether it's alcoholism, depression, suicide, or any of the other ones, you you always feel like you're alone. You feel like you can't talk to nobody. But the reality of it is if there was somebody standing in front of you telling you their story, then you wouldn't feel like that. You know, you'd be like,
100%.
oh,
I
you'd
completely
be
agree.
like, you know, I guess especially like say for instance, right now I'm dealing with alcoholism. And all of a sudden I go to work one day and you know, we got to do our annual training or whatever, or even if it's just a, you know, hey, we're gonna do a hip pocket class, and all of a sudden Gunny so and so comes walking out and he's like, hey, Marines, gather around, I want to talk to you guys. And he just starts talking about, hey man, when I was a corporal, you know, I used to get effed up, and he just starts going into the story about alcoholism. And now all of a sudden, you were just in your barracks room thinking about, wow, man, I'm really getting tanked up every weekend. Wow, I'm really throwing all my money away. Wow, man, maybe I have a problem. You know, I'm not going to say nothing. Now, all of a sudden, you flip the script. This gunnery sergeant is now talking about when he was a corporal in the same shoes, the same boots that you're in. Now,
Mhm.
at that moment, your entire world just flipped upside down. And you're like, oh, shit, he's a gunny and he dealt with this shit. Now, maybe I'm going to go talk to him. Maybe I'm going to talk to him. Maybe I'm going to ask for some help. You know, maybe because a lot of people, again, a lot of people just feel like, all right, well, the only way for me to get help is I got to go see the wizard. And then if I go see
Mhm.
the wizard, I'm going to get kicked out of the
My
Marine
career's
Corps.
over with. Yep.
So now we've created this, you know, this bad atmosphere because of that.
We
So
almost weaponize our resources.
yeah, and that's the thing. So that's really why I started mine as well, and I'm happy that you're doing what you're doing, because that's what it is, man. A lot of people don't want to talk to nobody but the Marine Corps, and even when you go to talk to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or whatever, which one it is, if they're not a Marine, then you don't feel like they understand where you're coming from. So then
Mhm.
you feel like you're in this boat of like, okay, well, I'm alone on this boat by myself and some random captain just steering. Like, why am I here right now? You know, so
100%.
you know, and it's good, man. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, man. To see what you're doing, and that's why I wanted to, you know, reach out to you, man, because you know we need things like that, and I think a huge part of it, you know, is that right now, you know, everybody's talking about suicide, and now it becomes this thing where it's a t-shirt or it's a push-up challenge, and it's like, okay, well, are we really doing it for the right reasons? You know, and the reality of it
100%.
is that if we do more of this, you know, and we do more talking, then people, more listeners are going to be like, oh shit, I deal with that. Oh shit, I've been there. Oh shit, I'm going through that right now. You know, and I
Mhm.
and even, you know, even in just a couple of episodes I've done, you know, I had my buddy, the one I was telling you about, his episode led to like 30 people hitting me up on Instagram, like, yo, I've been battling through alcoholism, bro. His story really helped me. And I'm like, yo, and that made him, that alone helped him on his own journey, because he was
Mhm.
like, wow, like I'm able to do that. So, and that's what it is, man. It's just helping other people through their journey, you know, and getting out of the rut they're in and just getting, you know, getting to that better part of life.
I completely agree, man. I really agree. I feel like if we did a lot more talking, a lot more telling our stories about the situation, you know, a little bit of transparency go a long way. You know, and I used to tell people on a regular basis, like, keep your push-ups. You feel me? Like, I need 22 seconds of you talking to me. You feel
Yeah,
me?
yeah.
It's of your time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need your 22 push-ups. And there's nothing to take away from that challenge because I know it's going to a good cause. But if you got time to do some fucking push-ups, then pick up a phone and talk to me. You feel me?
Yo, for real.
You know, and that was just always my mindset behind it, you know, and that's really why I moved in the direction of the Not So Meritorious podcast, because I know the military story, I know my story, and yeah, like, are there highs? Absolutely, but there's also lows, and I think, like, when we don't want to talk about the lows, you know, how can we really tell a whole? How are we able to really tell the whole story?
Well, yeah, and it's also like talking about what you were just saying, like given that 22 seconds, right? You know, the reality of it is that, and this is something that I really never even thought about until really recently, or just like literally right now. But you know, shit bags are still people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the reality of it is that, and this is something that I've been dealing with in the past like 6 months. Because I'm not gonna say I used to be a very judgmental person, because I'm not gonna lie, I still am.
Mm-hmm.
Like my wife, she's been sick for the past couple of days, and I'm like, yo, will you just get the fuck over it? Like that's just my mentality.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I try to remind myself like, hey, you're not her. You're not going through what you're going through. You know, I gotta be understanding of that. But you know, a big part of what I'm trying to get at is that a lot of people that are these shitbags, it's just because a lot of times no one took the time to understand them and learn more about them. Or even just ask them, hey man, what the, and I think a lot of time on active duty, we forget that, like, okay, yeah, you're on active duty. You work for me every single day. But we forget that, like, yo, this dude got a home in Virginia, or this dude has a home in Kansas, or wherever the hell he's from. And maybe there's things going back home that he doesn't talk to anybody about. Maybe, you know, someone's dying or someone's hurt, or maybe he's going through a bad, you have no idea.
No.
And the worst part is that a lot of times nobody wants to fucking even ask that question, like, hey man, is everything good with you? Like,
Yeah.
even though this dude is a turd, you know, like, you know, that's the question. Like, hey man, is everything all right? Because the reality of it is that even if you're the shitbag of the shitbags, the turdest of the turds, I still want you to be at formation tomorrow. Like,
100%.
I still
100%.
I don't want nothing negative to happen to you. You know what I mean? And I think that we lose sight of that. And you know, and it's also just, you know, making sure, again, I don't agree with the there needs to be a level of to everything, you know, and I think a lot of times we just forget that. I think we either go way too hard to the right or we go hard to the left, and we can't. And a lot of people just aren't in the middle. So that's what I would ask to anybody coming from two shit bags. Make sure that you take care of the shit bags. Take care of everybody. Make sure that every one of them knows, like, hey, listen, man, whatever you're going through, you can really come at me and talk to me about. Because that's the problem. Is a lot of times these people don't, because if they are, they don't have nobody to their left and right. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times they think, oh, well, he's the reason why we're staying late. He's the reason why this. So now that Marine, that Lance Corporal or PFC, is just sitting in his room and he ain't got no one to talk to, because now everybody's against him because of that. And that's no way to live, especially when you're already outside of your norm, which is your hometown, because now you're outside of that. So I think a lot of people just kind of forget that part of it. You know what
Yeah,
I
I
mean?
definitely I completely agree. I would definitely say have patience with the shitbag. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people come up to me and they say, like, damn man, I really wish I had Marines like you. You did. You did have Marines like me,
But you gave up
but
on them.
you gave up on them. Bingo.
That's the reality of it, bro.
That's the reality.
And it's, you know, you did have Marines like that, but you gave up on them. You never took the time to understand why they were like that. You know, I had a Marine. I had a Marine who literally was, I saw that in him. I was like, bro, this dude's a shitbag. I was like, but I saw me in him, and I was his sergeant, and I was trying so hard to help him out. And he would call me at night, bro. I remember this dude, no lie, man. We were at the Marine Corps ball. Dude was a PFC and having some drinks. And he asks me to go outside with him for a cigarette. I was like, all right, man, let's go. We can go out I'm at the ball. I'm like, all right, I'll leave my wife inside, or the time my fiance. I was like, yeah, let's go. I tell my girl, I'm like, hey, I'm like, babe, I'm gonna go outside with him real quick. And just talk to him. It sounds like something's going wrong. He's like wrecked. He's drunk as all hell. And I
Oh
bring him
dear.
out. I bring him outside, and we were the ball that we were at was on the water, and it was like raining hard as hell. And the boats are like, we're on the dock, and the boats are like this, and I'm like, bro, why the hell are we walking outside right now? And this dude starts walking to the dock, and I'm like, bro, where are we going? So then he walks all the way down the dock, and he just sits down at the end of the dock, and all you see out is just straight water and the moon. And he's just sitting down on the dock, drunk as hell, with his drink in his hand, weaving back and forth on the dock. I sit next to him, and bro, the water's like crashing up and down. Like, how I didn't get soaking wet, I have no idea. And he just looks at me and he goes, "This is my life." He goes, "This is my life." I was like, "What do you mean, bro?" He goes, "These waves, this is my life." He goes, "My life is crashing down. It's all up and down. It's weaving. It's the waves. Like, this is my life." And he goes, right now, this is the calmest it's ever been. And it's with you sitting next to me, just talking to me. I was like, yeah, man. I was like, that's what I'm here for, bro. I was like, so what's going on? He's like, nothing, man. I don't really want to talk about it, but just know, like, thank you for this. Thank you for this. He's like, let's go back inside. So we just went back inside, and long story short, me and that Marine don't talk no more. He, I tried to help him out a lot of times. He ended up getting kicked out of the Marine Corps because he continued to make some choice mistakes. And do I think that leadership failed him? I think that leadership definitely could have helped him out a lot more. But I think at the same time, it was one of those things where, like, bro, you can only get so much help, and you got to get yourself out of it too.
Absolutely.
But that's the thing, man, is be there for those people, because they don't have nobody. And that time, that's a dark time for them. So be there for that person to help calm that storm. But yo, do you have anything that you want to share with us? Anything that you want to throw at us? This has been good.
Oh, man,
I'm loving this.
Like, outside of don't forget to tap into the Not So Meritorious podcast every Wednesday, telling the military story and your story as well. But other than that, man, like, I have nothing. Oh, follow me on Instagram at Meech Speaks. Once again, that's Meech Speaks at MEECH. Yeah, that's it right there, man. That's it.
All right, no doubt, man. Yo, and another thing too, just at the end of this, your one episode, I think it was the last one, the finding purpose in the military. Yo, if y'all haven't listened to his podcast, go listen to his podcast and listen to that episode, because that episode is a reality. If you're not spending time in your life in the military, whether it's the Army, the Navy, whatever branch of military it is, if you're not taking time to find yourself, then you're screwing yourself over, because you develop so much as a young Marine into a leader. And I liked what you said in that episode, because you were talking about how there's a difference between finding something, and I forget what you said, but you said something that it was
finding
very
yourself and discovering yourself.
Yeah. Because I was like, yo, that was good, because I lose shit every day, and I gotta keep finding it. But
like when I brought that up, I was it was really talking about, like, when I left Detroit, people always talk about, like, how they want to find themselves. Like, if you're finding something, then you already know what it is. You know what you're looking for.
Yeah, like, I lost my wallet, I found it.
You feel me? I know what my wallet looks like. I know what's in it, X, Y, and Z. But when you go and discover something, you have no idea what it looks like. You just have an idea of what it is. You have this idea that this is what I'm looking for, but I don't know exactly what it looks like. If it passes me by, I probably wouldn't see it. Yeah. So that was really one of the biggest things, is like, joining the military allowed me to discover who I was. It wasn't that I found myself, I discovered myself.
Got you. All right, no doubt. So before we end this, what's the next, besides the new podcast that you just started? Like, what are some dreams, some goals, some endeavors that you have for the future you? Because you still got, 7 more years in the Marine Corps? 8, 7?
Yeah. I mean, like, to be honest with you, man, like, I kind of, like, I leave a lot of breadcrumbs. I'm very transparent, so I leave a lot of breadcrumbs in my episodes about what I want to do with my future. And one of the biggest things that I want to do with my future is that I want to be a full-time podcaster, a speaker, so that always comes into, eventually I'm going to have to make the choice of whether or not I want to stay in the military for another 7 years, or do I want to get out?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So right now the goal is moving towards becoming a full-time podcaster, being a full-time speaker while still being a Marine. You know what I mean? So that's the goal right now. That's what the future holds.
Got you. All right, no doubt. Well, hey, Meech, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming out, man. I really appreciate your time. And go listen to his podcast. He's really talking from the heart. And you can tell just by this interaction right here that everything you're doing is reality. Everything. And I like that, because, bro, there's some episodes where I'm just like, I'm not saying I have a bad episode, but the way you talk to people, you just not always it's going to be a good.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
So it's episodes like this that I'm like, yo, this is a good one. We kind of have like that same personality going. So I appreciate you coming out here, man. And thanks a lot for, again, just for being who you are, man, and doing what you're doing. And I'm glad you made it out of Detroit. And, I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks a lot, bro.
Always.